The wind moved softly across the wide desert plains, carrying the smell of dust, cedar smoke, and distant rain. The land stretched far beyond what the eye could measure, broken only by rocky hills and scattered cottonwood trees. In that quiet wilderness stood a small, Apache settlement where life moved slowly, but hearts carried stories deeper than the canyons. Among the people of that land lived a respected Apache warrior named Thunderhawk. His name carried strength, and his presence commanded respect even when he spoke only a few words. Years of hardship had carved quiet wisdom into his face. He had hunted across deserts, fought battles to protect his tribe, and endured losses that few men could carry without breaking. But Thunderhawk had one problem that even courage and honor could not solve. He was a widower. Many seasons had passed since the death of his beloved wife. The tribe had expected him to marry again, yet he never did. The reason was not pride or stubbornness. The truth was simple. No woman ever seemed right for the life he lived. Some feared the harsh desert life. Others feared the silent strength of the man himself. But there was another reason as well. Thunderhawk's world revolved around the one person who remained from his lost love, his daughter. Her name was Morningstar, and people often said the spirit of the sunrise lived in her eyes. She had grown into a thoughtful and strong young woman who understood both the gentle and fierce sides of life in the desert. She rode horses like the wind and spoke with wisdom that surprised the elders. Most daughters in the tribe would quietly accept whoever their father chose to marry. Morningstar was different. She watched everything. She understood people in ways that few others did. And because of that, Thunderhawk knew something important. The woman he married would not only become his wife, she would become part of Morningstar's life forever. One evening, as the sky burned orange over the desert, Thunderhawk sat beside the council fire with the tribal elder Iron Bear. The elder was known for seeing solutions where others only saw problems. "You carry too much silence in your house," Iron Bear said slowly. Thunderhawk stared into the fire. "Silence does not trouble me, but it troubles the spirits," the elder replied. "A man should not walk life alone." Thunderhawk did not answer immediately. The flames danced between them. Finally, he spoke. "The women here do not wish to share my path." Iron Bear studied him carefully before giving a strange suggestion. "Then look beyond this land." Thunderhawk frowned slightly. Iron Bear leaned forward. "In the distant towns of the white settlers, there are women who travel west to marry men they have never met. They call them mail-order brides." The words sounded strange in the quiet Apache camp, but the idea planted a seed. A few weeks later, a trader passing through the settlement carried letters far across the land. Thunderhawk had made a decision that surprised the entire tribe. He sent word requesting for mail-order brides. For women would travel across the country to meet the Apache warrior, and one of them would become his wife. The news spread quickly through nearby settlements and trading posts. Some people laughed at the unusual request. Others were curious about the mysterious warrior who had invited strangers into his world. Months passed. Then one morning, the sound of wagon wheels echoed across the dusty trail leading toward the Apache lands.
Ah!
For women had arrived. The tribe gathered quietly at a distance, watching as the wagon stopped near Thunderhawk's home. Dust swirled around the wooden wheels as the travelers stepped down one by one. The first woman carried herself like someone used to comfort and fine dresses. Her name was Lady Brielle. Her elegant posture made it clear she was not accustomed to the harsh desert wind. The second woman stepped down carefully, her eyes full of curiosity. She introduced herself as Willow Grace, a quiet woman who had grown up near rivers and green forests far away from the desert. The third traveler, Crimson Lark, had sharp eyes and fearless energy. She seemed more interested in adventure than marriage. Then the fourth woman slowly climbed down from the wagon. She carried a worn travel bag and moved with visible effort after the long journey. Her body was heavy, and dust clung to her simple dress. Some of the watching villagers whispered quietly as they saw her. Her name was Golden Meadow. Unlike the others, she did not look around with excitement or fear. She simply stood there quietly, breathing in the desert air as if she had been searching for a place like this her entire life. Thunderhawk stepped forward to greet them. He spoke respectfully to each woman, offering them shelter and food after their long journey. Yet, while the tribe watched the four brides with curiosity, One pair of eyes studied them more carefully than anyone else. Morning Star stood near the doorway of her father's home. She said nothing. She simply observed each woman. Lady Brielle looked uncomfortable with the dirt and heat. Willow Grace seemed gentle but uncertain. Crimson Lark appeared fascinated by the adventure of it all. But when Morning Star looked at Golden Meadow, something different stirred in her expression. Golden Meadow noticed the young girl watching her. Instead of looking away in embarrassment like many people might have done, she offered a warm smile, not a forced smile, a real one. Morning Star did not smile back, but something in her eyes changed. That evening, the tribe held a welcoming gathering for the travelers. Music echoed through the desert air, while lanterns flickered like fireflies. The four women sat together, speaking softly as they learned about the Apache way of life. Thunderhawk watched them all carefully. Choosing a wife was not something he would do lightly. But while the entire tribe wondered which of the four brides the powerful warrior would choose, no one realized the decision might not belong to him at all. As the night grew darker, Morning Star quietly walked toward her father. Her voice was calm, but her words carried a certainty that would soon change everything. "I know which woman you should marry." Thunderhawk looked down at his daughter with surprise. The music faded in the distance as he waited for her answer. Morning Star lifted her hand and pointed across the firelight. Not toward the elegant woman, not toward the adventurous one, not toward the gentle one. Her finger rested firmly in the direction of Golden Meadow, the quiet woman everyone else had already judged. Thunderhawk followed her gaze. His eyes narrowed slightly, because choosing that woman would shock the entire tribe. And as he looked again at the smiling stranger standing near the fire, he realized Morning Star might be seeing something no one else could see. Thunderhawk kept his eyes on the quiet woman standing near the fire, while the sound of drums rolled softly across the desert night. Golden Meadow was listening to the music, her hands folded in front of her, her face calm in the flickering firelight. She did not laugh loudly like Crimson Lark. She did not look uncomfortable like Lady Brielle. She did not seem nervous like Willow Grace. She simply watched the people around her as if she was trying to understand the rhythm of their world. Morning Star stood beside her father, still pointing toward the woman she had chosen. Thunderhawk slowly lowered her hand. "Why her?" he asked quietly. Morning Star did not answer right away. Her eyes remained fixed on Golden Meadow. "'Cause she's not pretending," she said at last. Thunderhawk frowned slightly. The answer sounded simple, yet the tone in his daughter's voice carried a depth that made him pause. Across the fire, Crimson Lark had already joined several young warriors in a lively conversation. She laughed easily and seemed fascinated by their stories of hunting and riding through the desert. Lady Brielle sat stiffly on a wooden bench, brushing dust from her dress again and again, as if the desert itself offended her. Willow Grace listened politely to an elderly woman who was explaining the tribe's customs. But her uncertain glances revealed how unfamiliar everything felt to her. Golden Meadow remained where she was, speaking softly with one of the older women of the tribe. The elder, whose name was Stone Willow, was known for her sharp instincts about people. Thunderhawk watched them carefully. Morning Star crossed her arms. "You see it too?" she said. Thunderhawk turned toward his daughter. "See what?" Morning Star's voice was steady. "She listens more than she speaks. The others want to be seen. She wants to understand." The drums grew louder as several young men began a traditional dance near the center of the gathering. The firelight reflected in the dancers' feathers and painted faces, creating shadows that moved across the ground like spirits of the past. Golden Meadow's eyes followed the dancers with quiet fascination. She asked Stone Willow a question, and the elder nodded while explaining something patiently. Thunderhawk noticed how carefully Golden Meadow listened, leaning slightly forward so she would not miss a single word. It was a small detail, but details often revealed the truth about people. Still, Thunderhawk was not a man who made decisions quickly. "These women have traveled far," he said. "I must learn who they truly are." Morning Star nodded once. "You will," she replied. "But the desert already shows their hearts." Later that night, the gathering slowly faded as people returned to their homes. The stars spread across the sky like scattered diamonds, and the desert air turned cool. Thunderhawk had arranged separate sleeping spaces for the four women inside a guest lodge near his home. It was simple but comfortable, built from sturdy wood and stone. Inside the lodge, The women sat together for the first time without the eyes of the tribe watching them. Crimson Lark stretched her arms with excitement. "This place is incredible," she said. "Did you see those horses? It's in the mountains? I swear I could ride for days here." Lady Brielle sighed heavily. "I cannot believe the dust," she muttered. "The heat during the day. I thought the West would be more civilized." Willow Grace sat quietly near the window, looking out at the moonlit desert. "It is beautiful in its own way," she said softly. Golden Meadow placed her travel bag beside the bed and slowly sat down. The long journey had clearly exhausted her, yet her eyes remained thoughtful. Crimson Lark studied her for a moment. "You hardly spoke all evening," she said. "What do you think about our mysterious warrior?" Golden Meadow smiled faintly. "I think he carries sadness," she replied. Lady Brielle looked surprised. "You noticed that after one evening?" Golden Meadow nodded. "Some kinds of silence are easy to recognize." The room grew quiet for a moment. Then Crimson Lark laughed again. "Well, one of us will become his wife. That is why we are here." Her tone was playful, but the truth behind her words settled into the room like a weight. Each woman had traveled across a vast country for the same reason: marriage, a new life, a future none of them could fully predict. Outside the lodge, Thunderhawk stood alone beneath the stars. The desert wind moved gently through the tall grass. In the distance, a coyote's cry echoed through the hills. Iron Bear approached slowly from the darkness. "The brides have arrived," the elder said. Thunderhawk nodded. Iron Bear studied the lodge where the women rested. "And which one speaks to your heart?" Thunderhawk remained silent for a moment. "My daughter has already chosen." Iron Bear's eyebrows lifted slightly. "That is interesting." Thunderhawk glanced toward him. "She chose the quiet one." Iron Bear rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "The heavy woman?" Thunderhawk nodded. Iron Bear watched the lodge again. "Tribal talk if you choose her," he said calmly. Among many people, beauty was judged quickly, and often unfairly. Golden Meadow did not fit the image that many expected for the wife of a strong warrior. Yet Thunderhawk had learned long ago that strength came in many forms. "I will watch them," he said. Iron Bear smiled slightly. "That is wise." Morningstar was not asleep either. She sat outside her small room, looking toward the lodge where the four women rested. The moonlight touched the desert sand, painting everything in silver shadows. Stone Willow quietly joined her. "You see something in that woman?" the elder said gently. Morningstar nodded. Stone Willow studied the girl's thoughtful face. "Tell me why." Morningstar thought carefully before answering. "When she stepped off the wagon, everyone looked at her body first," she said. "But I watched her eyes, and what did you see?" Morningstar spoke softly. She was not ashamed. Stone Willow smiled slowly. "That is rare." Morningstar continued, staring toward the lodge. She looked at our land like someone who had been searching for it. Inside the guest lodge, the four women were slowly preparing for sleep. Willow Grace had already blown out her lantern. Lady Brielle lay on her bed, clearly uncomfortable with the unfamiliar surroundings. Crimson Lark stared at the ceiling, still full of restless energy. Golden Meadow remained awake, sitting near the small window where the moonlight slipped inside. Her eyes moved across the quiet Apache village outside. She could see Thunderhawk standing in the distance, speaking with Iron Bear beneath the stars. Something about the tall warrior's lonely figure stirred a feeling inside her chest. Not fear, not excitement, something deeper, something that felt strangely familiar. Golden Meadow placed her hand over her heart, as if trying to understand that feeling.
Outside.
Thunderhawk finally turned and walked toward his home. His mind was filled with questions. For women had come to change his life. But somewhere within those questions, his daughter's voice echoed again. "She is not pretending." Thunderhawk looked once more toward the guest lodge before stepping inside his home. The night grew quiet. Yet beneath that calm silence, the path toward love, judgment, and unexpected choices had only just begun. Morning arrived slowly over the desert. First light touched the hills and spread across the open land like a quiet promise. Birds began to sing near the cottonwood trees, and thin smoke rose from cooking fires as the Apache village woke for another day. Inside the guest lodge, the four women were waking to a world very different from the towns they had left behind. Crimson Lark stepped outside first. The cool morning air seemed to energize her. She stretched her arms and looked across the wide desert with bright curiosity. A few young warriors were already training near the open field, practicing with bows and spears. Crimson Lark walked closer to watch. "Do you do that every morning?" she asked one of them. The warrior, whose name was Storm Falcon, nodded proudly. "Our strength protects the tribe." Crimson Lark smiled with admiration. "I like that." Not far away, Willow Grace stepped quietly out of the lodge. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and looked at the distant mountains glowing in the sunrise. The sight made her breathe deeply. "It feels peaceful," she whispered to herself. But Lady Brielle came outside with a very different expression. The moment the dust touched the edge of her shoes, she frowned. "I cannot imagine living here forever," she muttered. Meanwhile, Golden Meadow remained inside for a moment longer. She sat on the edge of her bed, adjusting the worn leather strap on her bag. Her journey had been long and exhausting, and the unfamiliar place still felt overwhelming. Yet something inside her refused to feel discouraged. She stepped outside slowly. The morning sunlight warmed her face as she looked across the Apache settlement. Children were running between the houses. Women prepared food beside small fires. Horses moved calmly in a nearby field. Golden Meadow watched everything carefully. Stone Willow noticed her standing alone and approached with a gentle smile. "You slept well?" the elder asked. Golden Meadow nodded respectfully. "Yes, the quiet here is different from the towns." Stone Willow studied her face for a moment.
"How?"
"Many people fear quiet," she said. "Forces them to hear their own thoughts." Golden Meadow smiled softly. "I think quiet helps the heart speak." Across the open space, Morning Star was feeding a horse. She noticed Golden Meadow speaking with Stone Willow and paused to watch. Crimson Lark had already joined Storm Falcon and the other warriors as they practiced throwing spears. Her laughter carried across the air as she tried to copy their movements. Several villagers were watching her with amusement. Lady Brielle had found a chair near the lodge and was brushing dust from her sleeves again, clearly unhappy with the rough surroundings. Willow Grace was helping one of the older women gather herbs near the edge of the settlement. Morning Star observed them all. Her father had said he would take time to learn about the four brides, but she believed the truth about people often appeared quickly if someone knew how to look. Thunderhawk soon stepped out of his home. His tall figure moved across the village with quiet authority. People greeted him respectfully as he walked. His eyes briefly passed over each of the women. Crimson Lark throwing spears. Willow Grace working with herbs. Lady Brielle sitting apart from everyone. Golden Meadow speaking gently with Stone Willow. Thunderhawk noticed something else. Golden Meadow was listening more than talking, just as Morning Star had said. Later that morning, Iron Bear gathered several elders beneath a large tree. News about the four mail-order brides had already spread across nearby settlements, and many people were curious about what Thunderhawk would decide. One elder named Red Granite spoke first. A warrior like Thunderhawk should choose a strong and beautiful wife, someone who brings honor to his house. Another elder nodded toward Crimson Lark in the distance. The fiery one would bring excitement to the tribe. Iron Bear remained thoughtful. "Excitement does not always bring peace," he said. Red Granite looked toward Golden Meadow, who was now helping Stone Willow carry water. "That woman will bring whispers," he muttered. Iron Bear said nothing, but his eyes moved quietly toward Morning Star. The girl was watching everything again. Meanwhile, Thunderhawk approached the training field where Crimson Lark stood proudly holding a spear. "You learn quickly," he said. Crimson Lark smiled boldly. "I have always liked adventure." Thunderhawk studied her carefully. "Life here is more than adventure. It is responsibility." Crimson Lark's smile softened slightly, though her confidence remained strong. "I believe I could learn." Thunderhawk nodded politely before continuing his walk. He next approached Willow Grace, who was sorting herbs with the older women. "You seem comfortable here," he said. Willow Grace looked up with gentle eyes. "I grew up near forests," she replied. "The desert is different, but the land still feels alive." Thunderhawk appreciated her calm nature, yet as he walked away, his thoughts remained unsettled. Finally, his steps slowed near the water well where Golden Meadow was lifting a bucket. The rope was heavy, and her arms strained slightly as she pulled it upward. Thunderhawk stepped forward. "Allow me." Golden Meadow looked up, surprised. "I do not need to," she said kindly. But Thunderhawk had already taken the rope and lifted the bucket with ease. He placed it beside her. Golden Meadow thanked him with a warm smile. Their eyes met for a brief moment. There was no embarrassment in her gaze, only honesty. Thunderhawk noticed something unusual in the way she looked at him. It was not admiration like Crimson Lark showed. It was not nervous curiosity like Willow Grace. It was not judgment like Lady Brielle sometimes revealed. It felt more like understanding. "You traveled far to come here," Thunderhawk said. Golden Meadow nodded. "Far enough to know I did not belong where I was before." Thunderhawk studied her carefully. "And you believe you belong here?" Golden Meadow glanced across the village. Children were laughing nearby while Morning Star brushed the horse. "I do not know yet," she said. But I want to try." Her answer lingered in the air between them. At that same moment, Lady Brielle was watching from the distance. Her eyes narrowed slightly. She had noticed Thunderhawk speaking longer with Golden Meadow than with the others. Crimson Lark also saw them while walking back from the training field. She tilted her head with curiosity. Meanwhile, Morning Star stood quietly beside the horse. She saw her father and Golden Meadow near the well. The sunlight touched them both as they spoke. Morning Star felt the same quiet certainty she had felt the night before. Yet she also knew something else. The tribe was already whispering. Some people did not approve of Golden Meadow. Others doubted that Thunderhawk would ever choose her. Morning Star gently placed her hand on the horse's neck. The desert wind moved through the tall grass again. The path ahead was growing more complicated with every passing moment, and the choice that seemed clear to Morning Star might soon bring conflict to the entire tribe. The desert days passed slowly, yet the quiet tension inside the Apache village grew stronger with each sunrise. Everyone knew why the four women had traveled so far. Everyone knew Thunderhawk would soon have to make his choice. But the longer the bride stayed, the more complicated everything became. Whispers traveled through the settlement like wind across dry grass. Some people admired Crimson Lark for her fearless energy. She rode horses with the young warriors and laughed loudly during their evening gatherings. Stormfalcon seemed especially fascinated by her bold spirit. Others respected Willow Grace for her kindness. She spent hours helping Stone Willow and the older women gather herbs, cook meals, and care for the children. Many people believed she would bring peace into Thunderhawk's quiet home. Lady Brielle kept mostly to herself. The desert life clearly challenged her patience, yet she carried herself with pride. She spoke often about the towns she had left behind, where houses were large and streets were busy with people and music. Then there was Golden Meadow. She did not try to impress anyone. She simply helped wherever help was needed. Some mornings she carried water from the well. Other days she helped repair woven baskets with the older women. Sometimes she sat with the children and listened to their stories. Yet despite her quiet efforts, the whispers around her continued. One afternoon, Red Granite stood near the trading post speaking with several men. "Thunderhawk is a respected warrior," he said firmly. "His wife must reflect that strength." One of the younger men nodded. "But Golden Meadow has a kind heart." Red Granite shook his head. Kindness is not enough for a warrior's house. Their conversation was not as quiet as they believed. Golden Meadow had come to the trading post to collect a bundle of cloth Stone Willow had ordered. As she approached the corner of the building, their words reached her ears clearly. She paused. For a moment, she simply stood there, listening. Then she quietly turned away and walked back toward the village. Across the open field, Morning Star saw her. The girl immediately noticed something had changed in Golden Meadow's expression. Her steps were slower, and her shoulders carried a weight that had not been there before. Morning Star walked toward her. "Did something happen?" she asked gently. Golden Meadow hesitated before answering. "Do the people here care deeply about your father?" Morning Star steadied her face carefully, and Golden Meadow gave a small smile. "They want him to be happy." Morning Star crossed her arms. "That is true." Golden Meadow looked toward the distant mountains glowing in the afternoon sun. "But sometimes people believe happiness must look a certain way." Morning Star did not respond right away. She understood exactly what Golden Meadow meant. Later that evening, Thunderhawk sat beside the fire with Iron Bear once again. The orange flames moved slowly as the sun disappeared behind the hills. "You've watched them," Iron Bear said calmly. Thunderhawk nodded. "Yes, and your heart." Thunderhawk stared into the fire for a long moment. "Oh, my heart listens to many voices." Iron Bear smiled slightly. That is the problem with hearts. They rarely stay quiet. At that moment, Crimson Lark approached the fire with confident steps. Thunderhawk, she said, Stormfalcon invited me to ride with the warriors tomorrow morning. We plan to travel beyond the Red Canyon. Thunderhawk nodded politely. The desert can be dangerous. Crimson Lark's eyes sparkled with excitement. That is why I like it. She gave him a playful smile before walking away. Iron Bear watched her go. She has the spirit of a wild horse. Thunderhawk agreed silently. Soon after, Willow Grace approached the fire carrying a small bundle of herbs. I prepared tea for you, she said kindly. Thunderhawk thanked her. Her gentle nature reminded him of calm rivers and quiet forests. Yet his thoughts continued to wander elsewhere. Night settled over the desert once again. Lanterns flickered outside the homes while the stars filled the sky. Golden Meadow sat alone near the edge of the village where the land opened into endless desert. The wind moved softly through the tall grass around her. She held a small piece of cloth in her hands, slowly folding it again and again. Thunderhawk noticed her from a distance. For several moments he simply watched her sitting beneath the moonlight. Then he walked toward her. Golden Meadow heard his footsteps and looked up. I hope I am not sitting in someone's place, she said gently. Thunderhawk shook his head. This land belongs to the wind more than it belongs to us. Golden Meadow smiled at the answer. They sat in silence for a moment. The quiet desert night wrapped around them. Finally, Thunderhawk spoke. Do you regret coming here? Golden Meadow looked toward the distant hills. No. Her answer was immediate. Thunderhawk seemed slightly surprised, even with the whispers. Golden Meadow's fingers tightened slightly around the cloth in her hands. Every place is whispers, she said. I heard them where I came from, too. Thunderhawk studied her carefully. And yet you came anyway. Golden Meadow nodded slowly. I wanted a chance to begin again. Her voice carried honesty that could not be easily ignored. Thunderhawk felt something shift quietly inside his chest. At that same moment, Morning Star stood near her home watching the two figures in the distance. Stone Willow approached quietly beside her. The choice grows closer, the elder said. Morning Star nodded. Yes. Stone Willow looked toward Thunderhawk and Golden Meadow beneath the moonlight. But choices are rarely simple. The next morning, the entire village gathered near the council fire. Iron Bear had called for a meeting. Thunderhawk stood beside him, his powerful presence drawing everyone's attention. The four brides stood nearby. Crimson Lark looked curious and excited. Willow Grace seemed calm but nervous. Lady Brielle held her head high with quiet expectation. Golden Meadow stood silently, her hands folded together. The desert wind moved gently through the gathering. Iron Bear raised his hand for silence. Thunderhawk has welcomed 4 women into our land, the elder announced. Each of them came seeking a future. All eyes turned toward the warrior. Thunderhawk stepped forward slowly. The moment had arrived. The tension in the air felt almost alive. Morning Star stood near the front of the crowd, her heart beating steadily. Red Granite crossed his arms, watching closely. Stormfalcon stood beside Crimson Lark. Stone Willow observed quietly. The entire Apache village waited. Thunderhawk looked at each of the 4 women one by one. His eyes paused slightly longer on Golden Meadow. Then he lifted his head and prepared to speak. The desert wind suddenly rose, carrying dust across the open ground as if the land itself was holding its breath. And in that powerful moment, everyone waited to hear the choice that would change their lives forever. The desert wind moved across the gathering as Thunderhawk stood before the Apache village. The people waited in complete silence. Even the horses tied near the wooden posts seemed unusually still, as if the entire land understood that an important moment had arrived. Thunderhawk looked at the 4 women again. Crimson Lark stood with confident energy, her eyes bright with curiosity about what life might bring next. Willow Grace held her hands together calmly, though her gentle eyes revealed a quiet nervousness. Lady Brielle stood proudly, certain that her elegance and grace had surely impressed the powerful warrior. Golden Meadow stood a little behind the others, her expression peaceful but humble. She was not trying to appear stronger or more beautiful than she believed she was. She simply stood as herself. Thunderhawk slowly stepped forward. I asked for 4 mail-order brides because my house has been filled with silence for many seasons, he said in a steady voice. After my wife walked into the spirit world, I believed no one could truly share my life again. The villagers listened carefully. But these women traveled far across the land to stand here today. That kind of courage deserves respect. He turned toward Crimson Lark first. You carry the fire of adventure, he said. Your spirit is strong and fearless. Our warriors have enjoyed your laughter, and Storm Falcon has spoken proudly of your bravery. Crimson Lark smiled, though she sensed the direction of his words. Thunderhawk then faced Willow Grace. You carry kindness and peace. Stone Willow says your hands are gentle and your heart is patient. These are gifts that any home would be lucky to receive. Willow Grace lowered her eyes with quiet gratitude. Thunderhawk finally turned toward Lady Brielle. You come from a world very different than this one, he said calmly. Life here asks for patience with dust, wind, and long quiet nights. I respect that you came all this way to try. Lady Brielle held her head high, though her expression had begun to soften. Then Thunderhawk's eyes slowly moved toward Golden Meadow. For a brief moment, the entire village seemed to lean closer. Golden Meadow looked back at him without fear. Thunderhawk spoke again, but this time his voice carried a deeper emotion. When people first saw you step from the wagon, many of them made their judgment quickly. Several villagers shifted uncomfortably. But my daughter Morningstar did not judge you quickly. Morningstar felt every eye turn toward her, yet she remained calm. Thunderhawk continued. She saw something many others did not take time to see. Golden Meadow's hands tightened slightly together as she listened. You listened to our people. You worked beside our elders. You treated this land with respect, even before you knew if it would welcome you. The desert wind moved gently through the crowd. Thunderhawk stepped closer to Golden Meadow. In the Apache way, strength is not only found in muscles or speed. True strength lives in patience, honesty, and the courage to remain kind when others doubt you. Golden Meadow felt her heart beat faster. Thunderhawk lifted his head and spoke clearly so the entire village could hear. I choose Golden Meadow to be my wife. A wave of murmurs passed through the crowd. Some people looked surprised. Others slowly began to nod. Morningstar smiled softly, her eyes shining with quiet pride. Red Granite crossed his arms again, studying the 2 figures standing before the tribe. After a moment, even he gave a small approving nod. Crimson Lark stepped forward first. She laughed warmly and placed a hand on Storm Falcon's shoulder. Well, I suppose the desert adventure gave me something else instead, she said playfully. Storm Falcon looked both surprised and pleased. Willow Grace approached Golden Meadow next and hugged her gently. I think your heart already belonged here, she said kindly. Even Lady Brielle walked forward with a thoughtful expression. This land may not suit me, she admitted, but I can see it suits you. Golden Meadow felt emotion rising in her chest. She had prepared herself for disappointment, yet this moment felt almost unreal. Thunderhawk looked toward his daughter. Morningstar stepped forward. You saw her before anyone else did, he said. Morningstar smiled. No, she replied gently. You only needed time to see her too. That evening, the Apache village held a celebration far greater than the welcoming feast weeks earlier. Lanterns glowed like golden stars across the settlement. Drums echoed through the warm desert air while dancers moved around the great fire. Golden Meadow sat beside Thunderhawk, still adjusting to the warmth and acceptance surrounding her. Stone Willow leaned close to her. Sometimes the heart knows where it belongs before the mind understands, the elder said. Golden Meadow nodded softly. Across the fire, Crimson Lark laughed with Storm Falcon as they shared stories of riding through the canyon. Willow Grace sat with several women learning new songs of the tribe. Even Lady Brielle seemed more relaxed now that her path was clear. She planned to travel to a nearby trading town where her talents in sewing and design would be welcomed. The tension that once hung over the village had slowly turned into something else. Understanding, respect, hope. Later that night, Thunderhawk and Golden Meadow walked away from the celebration toward the quiet edge of the desert. The moon hung high above them. Golden Meadow looked across the wide land that stretched endlessly beneath the silver light. When I left my old town, she said softly, people believed no one would ever choose me. Thunderhawk stopped walking. He looked at her carefully. They were blind. Golden Meadow smiled gently. Maybe they simply did not know where I truly belonged. Thunderhawk reached for her hand. In that quiet moment, the powerful warrior, who once lived with only silence in his home, finally felt peace returning to his heart. Morningstar watched them from the distance. Stone Willow stood beside her. "You changed your father's life," the elder said. Morningstar shook her head slightly. "I only pointed toward what was already there." The desert wind moved through the tall grass once more, carrying laughter and music from the celebration behind them. And under the endless Apache sky, a new chapter had begun for Thunderhawk, Golden Meadow, and the family that had found each other in the most unexpected way. Sometimes love did not arrive in the form people expected. Sometimes it arrived quietly, with patience and honesty, waiting for someone brave enough to truly see it.